Trump has grown increasingly angry with Fox News because Fox News is, for once, pushing back against some of his ridiculous claims, unfounded claims of widespread voter fraud. In a recent segment, they looked into specific claims made by the Trump campaign and debunked those claims one by one. And following that segment, of course, Trump tweeted a bunch of nasty things toward Fox, which we'll get to in just a second. But first, let's watch the video.
The president says observers were not allowed in the counting rooms. Is that true?
That's totally untrue.
The president says, quote, bad things happened that our observers were not allowed to see. Is that true?
Absolutely not.
Have you seen any evidence of voter fraud here?
I have not.
And how about the allegations about Dominion voting systems, that they supposedly changed Trump votes to Biden votes? Well, here's part of the company's answer to that allegation. Quote, vote deletion, switching assertions are completely false. Dominion is a nonpartisan US company. Dominion has no ownership relationships with the Pelosi family, Feinstein family, Clinton Global Initiative, Smartmatic, Skytol, or any ties to Venezuela. Dominion works with all US political parties. You know, prosecutors say that any voter or election fraud allegation will be thoroughly investigated. And if the fix were in, if there was wrongdoing, we will know about it. But election officials across the country insist, as of today, there is no evidence of any widespread fraud affecting the outcome of the presidential election, that our precious democracy was not tampered with, and that such baseless and false claims are an insult to the thousands of election officials and workers across the country who we have seen dedicating themselves 24/7 to ensure a fair and free election for all of us.
So it's segments like that essentially infuriate Donald Trump to the point where he encourages people, his supporters, to ditch Fox and go to a more right-wing extremist place to get their news, and that's of course OANN. He tweeted, try watching OANN, really great. And that was following the segment that I just showed you. But this is, go ahead, Cenk, just have at it.
Okay, so
I mean, it's the same thing. It's exhausting. The fact checking has to happen, right? And I just feel like the news cycle is insanely repetitive right now because he won't give it up. And I'm wondering if a better strategy at this point is to just ignore him 100%, because the federal judges are not siding with him because his campaign has failed to provide any evidence. Donald Trump is using this like hysteria that he's created in the news cycle in order to raise money for, anything other than actually funding his so-called court battles related to this election. So I feel like at this point, it's abundantly clear that he lost. There's no path to victory. He's a complete and utter liar. And I don't know. I feel like ignoring him might be the better option at this point.
Yeah, no, we tried that before and it just doesn't work. What happens is it winds up festering more. So when there's no messaging pushback, first the Republican base starts to think that they're totally right. Now they're the easiest to fool. They're the rubes who fell for Donald Trump's con in the first place, and they're the ones who back him 93%, literally in this election. So then pressure starts to build on state Republican legislators and national ones, and so I don't care about the national ones as much, but the state ones are relevant because the one thing you want to avoid is these different slates of electors. That would be a giant constitutional mess and really hard to deal with in the courts. In order to do that, the Republicans in the different states would just have to lie 1,000,000% and go, we don't care. We don't care that our voters voted for Biden in Pennsylvania or Georgia or anywhere else. We're just gonna say Trump won. I don't care. And now we go to the Congress, and because of the way that the rules are set up, the Republicans can win in Congress. So as long as full scale cheating is still on the board, and it still is, there's no way we should relent in our pressure and Anna, I don't know what's gonna happen here, and that's rare when I say that. But is this nonstop crying when every single media outlet, including Fox News, is saying no, you have presented no evidence of fraud in 18 different court cases. If that's going to do damage to the Republican brand, because all the Republicans are backing it, right? Or if no, there's just no damage you could possibly do to the Republican brand. The Republican voters like the cheating, they like the crying, they love the whining, they love being victims or pretend victims. And like this whole thing of grievances, it's Festivus all year round for Republicans. Maybe they love it. And so maybe there'll be no damage to the Republican Party, in which case Republican politicians in every election going forward will be greatly encouraged to steal, lie, cheat, and cry after the elections and try it one more time, both before in the voter purges, etc., and after in these kind of efforts. If the poll numbers come back at some point and say, no, now all of a sudden the Republican brand is pretty badly damaged, you'll see McConnell and all those guys turn around immediately, right? But until then, we have to keep the pressure up. And so along those lines, by the way, I just wanted to say one thing about, or two things about what the Fox News anchor said there. One, I don't like this whole thing of like, are the people who worked in the polling, et cetera, are American heroes. They are, especially if they went out there and risked their health, et cetera. So don't question the results. No. If there's a legitimate case, that's totally different. And I don't want this like support the troops kind of thing growing until we're not allowed to question any election results if there's something actually wrong and we have actual evidence, right? So I don't like that talking point. Now on the other side, the case against Dominion, I mean, they're so nuts. So now Fox News has to.
Venezuela, Cenk, Venezuela. Anytime that there's something they don't like, just say Venezuela. Like, what? Like, what does Venezuela have to do with anything? Like, tying this voting system to Venezuela is just, it's like Republican 101. I feel like Charlie Kirk came up with this.
No, maybe he did. So the alt-right comes up with a lot of the talking points that go to Trump and then to everybody. I mean, Fox News is having to clarify that Dominion is not financially connected to Venezuela. That's the kind of level of insight. The Clinton Global Initiative, I don't think it even exists anymore. I'm surprised. And they threw Pelosi and Feinstein. Look, Pelosi and Feinstein are corrupt in a lot of ways. Just not this way. And if any show points out Pelosi and Feinstein corruption, it's the Young Turks. Probably more so than any Republican show, right? But they didn't do this one. Clinton Global Initiative doesn't even exist anymore. I'm surprised they didn't throw Benghazi in there. And obviously Dominion, partly owned by Benghazi. Like, wait, that doesn't even make any sense. So what? Fast and the Furious, Cylindra, long form.
So embarrassing. It's just so, imagine being part of that group. Imagine identifying and agreeing with those types of arguments. It's just, I use the word embarrassing a lot these days because there's a lot of embarrassing stuff going on.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.